I woke up at 5 in the morning to a noise that could have been thunder if you weren't paying attention. But me, I've lived on this patch of Oklahoma dirt long enough to know when a sound isn't just thunder, it's a warning. And sure enough, when I stepped out onto my porch in bare feet and squinted into that murky half-light, there it was, a 7-foot deep trench, like some kind of cartoon moat, cut clear across the land between me and the world. And standing right at the edge of it, grinning like they'd just discovered fire, was the HOA. Yeah, that happened. You ever wake up and realize you're smack in the middle of a siege you didn't even start? That was me, cup of cold coffee in one hand, shotgun in my mind, staring down at a mess of dirt and diesel. The HOA thought they had me beat. Thought a fake permit, a few bulldozers, and their best "this is for your own good" smiles would be enough to make me fold. What they didn't know was that every fence post, every birdhouse, every inch of my property was wired up with hidden cameras. And the footage I captured that night, let's just say, that footage didn't just stop them, it put them in prison. But look, before you get too caught up in imagining me as some kind of rural Batman, you gotta know how a person ends up here. You want to understand how you find yourself staring over a trench with a community association trying to bulldoze your life? Let me back up a sec. This whole thing, none of it started with bulldozers or legalese or HOA henchmen pretending they're the good guys. It started 30 years ago with a kid behind an old barn, dirt under his nails, and a father who didn't trust anything he didn't fix himself. I was 12. That morning, my dad handed me a wrench, cold, heavy, honest steel, and said, "This land runs because we know how to keep it running." I didn't really get it then. Hell, I probably rolled my eyes. But it sunk in, slow and sure. Like rainwater working its way into red clay. 12 acres outside Tulsa, that's what we had. Not a palace, not even close, but honest. Cottonwoods bending toward the creek, a house that creaked when the wind blew, and fences that always needed fixing. When my dad passed, it all came to me. I kept it mostly the same. Same creaky porch, same stubborn patch of yard, same old workshop with the faded "No suits allowed" sign over the door. To outsiders, maybe it looked outdated, maybe even a little sad. But to me, that was home. That was freedom, the kind you don't find in places with board meetings and color-coded bins for recycling. Over the years, I rebuilt what needed it. After a tornado took half the porch, I put it back, one board at a time. Dug the well deeper when city water started tasting like pennies. Installed solar panels out back. Not because I'm some green evangelist, but because the thought of being at someone else's mercy makes my skin crawl. The only neighbors I cared about were a pack of coyotes and Tom Halverson's wayward cow, who wandered over when his fence was sagging. It was a life measured in seasons, not schedules. And I liked it just fine. But, progress doesn't knock. It creeps, slow as rust, until you wake up one day and find someone else's blueprint running right up against your fence. About 4 years ago, that's when the trouble started. One morning, a line of trucks rolled in, new, shiny, out of place. Folks in boots too clean for real work, flashing smiles you could see a mile away. They rolled out blueprints and talked about shared values and community experiences. What they meant was cookie-cutter houses and rules about your mailbox. They built their subdivision, Sunny Hollow, with its name so sweet. It'll rot your teeth, and fenced it off, west boundary kissing up against mine. I figured, let him play king on their side. I'll be free on mine. I was wrong. Real wrong. The first sign was just a letter. White envelope. No return address. Just SAA stamped in fancy letters. Inside, an offer to buy me out for community expansion. I tossed it into the fire pit. 2 weeks later, another letter. This time with a number highlighted in neon yellow. 600 grand. Now, to someone who's never had dirt under their fingernails, maybe that sounds like a fortune. But you can't put a price on the land where your father taught you the difference between a wrench and a wish. Ignoring them, that was my mistake. You don't ignore a rattlesnake under your porch and expect it to wander off. The HOA president, Karen Martell, she wasn't the kind to take no for an answer. And that's when the war really began. Things never go to hell all at once. It starts quiet. So polite you almost miss it. One Tuesday, I'm checking the fence when I hear this high-pitched whine, not an insect, something mechanical. I look up, and there's a black drone, hovering low. lens twisting to get a better look at my hat line. It zipped off, but over the next week, more showed up, each bolder than the last. Then came the white sedan, windows so tinted you couldn't see. Daylight through 'em, parked for 2 hours at the edge of my land. When I finally walked toward it, it rolled off slow, not in a hurry at all. Maybe I was being paranoid, right? Old man with too much time, seeing ghosts in the trees. That's what I told myself, until two guys in safety vests, clipboards in hand, showed up. They were a good 6 feet over my property line. One was a bearded, middle-aged guy, looked like he trimmed his beard with a chainsaw. The other, just a kid, nervous, wouldn't meet my eyes. Survey crew. The older one says, all business. Great, I said. Then you know you just crossed mine. The kid looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. You should keep an eye on this place, sir, he mumbled, before hurrying after his partner. That was breadcrumb number 1. Didn't know it then. That night, I checked the security cams. One went dead for exactly 2 minutes, right when I heard that sedan's door slam. Coincidence? Maybe. But I've learned that's not a word you can afford when someone wants your land. A couple days later, I find my mailbox open, the hinge warm, like someone had just been there. Letter half pulled out. Nothing taken, just disturbed. That's not paranoia. That's a message. But nothing, and I mean nothing, got under my skin like the next note. Sunday morning, I find a paper under my windshield. Wiper. You should reconsider the offer. No envelope. No signature. Just pure threat, the polite kind that makes you want to take a shower. So when Karen Martell herself shows up in her spotless SUV, heels sharp enough to punch holes in the driveway, I'm not surprised. She steps out, all business, offers a handshake like she's running for governor. I don't take it. She gives me the same. Speech, community, shared values, long-term development. I let her talk. When she's done, I just point to the fields. This is my bigger picture. For the first time, I see something crack in her eyes, just for a second. She drops a business card on my fence post and walks off. For a minute, I think, maybe that's it. Maybe I'll just be the grumpy old holdout. The end of her checklist. Wrong again. Days later, the white sedan's back. Surveyors show up again, bolder, walking my fence line, dragging measuring wheels. I hear them whisper, "Mark, we shouldn't be this close, man." Lines move. "You'll learn that," the boss says. Later, at dusk, a house on the HOA side flicks on a security floodlight, pointed not at their yard, but right at mine. Not lighting, interrogation. Then another note. "You're holding up progress." That word, progress, always used by people trying to take something that's not theirs. The siege tightened. Trench stakes started appearing, one by one, marking a path right through my property. That night, I caught the young surveyor, breadcrumb 2, snapping pictures of the stakes and looking guilty as sin. The HOA Facebook page, meanwhile, announced upcoming improvements to common land. Common land, my ass. The next morning, I woke to the real assault. Bulldozers at dawn, carving a trench along the western line. Karen waving at me across the gap like we're neighbors at a barbecue. "Just a bit of work," she shouts. "Routine drainage." I could have laughed if it didn't make my blood boil. That trench was 4 feet deep, running right through the old property marker my dad said in '78. I called the sheriff. Young deputy, polite, way out of his depth. Karen handed him updated boundaries, brand new. Ink still wet. He said he'd have to check with the county. Technically, he said, they shouldn't block my access. Technically, that word tastes like dirt. The next day, they parked a dump truck across my only driveway, signed it, temporary construction obstruction. Deliveries stopped. Groceries canceled. Trash pickup left a message. Unable to access due to construction. City water turned muddy. At the well, I caught a faint smell of diesel, enough to know someone had tampered with my pump. Nights got worse. Laughter across the field, boot prints in the dirt near my porch. Camera logs showing a blackout for 9 minutes. My old neighbor Tom texted, "Sorry, HOA folks threatened citations. Can't help right now. Fear spreads fast out here." By day, Banjo, the only soul I trusted, paced the well, whining. Fresh boot treads, diesel by the intake. Not enough to kill my water, just enough to let me know we can reach anything. And then, an email from an unknown sender. "You didn't hear this from me." Attached, a photo of a blueprint, Sunny Hollow Expansion Phase 3. Half the new houses drawn right on top of my land. My home labeled Future Recreational Green. Overlay. And another attachment. Stop negotiating. Begin pressure sequence. KM. Karen Martell. That's when it all clicked. They weren't just harassing me. They were trying to break me. To force me off the land, so they could claim it as abandoned and seize it under some shady municipal statute. But they didn't count on one thing. I wasn't alone. Someone on the inside, that young surveyor, was sending me proof. Saturday night, quiet as the inside of a grave. 2 HOA men showed up, dumping cinder blocks in the trench, trying to seal my only passage for water. Karen was there, giving orders. If the edge of his foundation cracks, insurance will handle the mess. I caught it all on camera. When I stepped out, shotgun slung at my side, banjo growling. Karen tried to stare me down. I lifted my phone, hit record, and told her, plain and cold, I'm recording everything. Her mask cracked. Her men backed off. The young worker muttered, I'm done, and drove off. Karen stood there, fists shaking, knowing for the first time she'd lost control. The next morning, I called Sheriff Wright, gray beard, boots older than me, the kind of man who knows a real crime when he sees it. I showed him the footage. Trespass, harassment, property damage, unlawful imprisonment. He called for backup, bagged my flash drive like it was gold. By noon, Karen was in handcuffs. The HOA office was crawling with deputies, the fake permits and bulldozers taped off. Neighbors came by, some ashamed, some apologetic, some silent. One old lady brought cookies. County crews filled the trench, real crews this time, and by sunset, the scar was just a memory in the dirt. In court, Karen pleaded not guilty. People like her always do. Her board folded. Turns out, my land was just phase 1. She had plans for everyone. They stacked charges like cinder blocks. Weeks later, with banjo by my side and the air finally still again, I put up a new fence, tall, strong, with a metal sign. Trench 25. Never again. For me, not for show. And as I stood back, hands on my hips, banjo wagging beside me, the breeze felt right again. The land was mine. Because the truth, real, stubborn truth, has a way of winning in the end, if you hold on tight enough. But let me ask you something. Where's the line between progress and theft? Between community and control? When does right become wrong? And who decides? You ever fought for something you loved when the whole world told you to give it up? I want to hear it. Share your story below. Tell me what justice means to you. And let's see who still believes that the law is worth more than a bulldozer.